Hey, Tass and Pavel, nice to see you guys here. Hold off a little bit to start until we get a little bit more of a critical mass here. Portland, Oregon, but the rest of you. I do love how global the bubble community is. Anybody gonna make it? Anybody making it to BubbleCon in a couple weeks? Yes, you can deduct work trips and meals and entertainment as business expenses in the US. Hi, Kelly. Yeah, I wish I had the time at BubbleCon to do a little bit more touring, but it's a packed 2 days, and then the meetup beforehand and seeing the a couple of people you really want to spend some time with in person. It takes yeah, right. You've got to. All right. All right. Well, it's about 5 minutes in. I think we've probably got enough folks to start. I'll be paying attention to the chat. I think I'm going to hold off answering questions until the end. A little intro about myself and about Bootstrapped and some rules I've learned in the last year or so, but honestly, like the last 6 years. And then hopefully we can answer some questions at the end too. All right, so hi everyone. Nice to see you all here. My name's Will. I've been bubbling for over 6 years now. And I actually started out doing a PhD in philosophy. That's where my bubble journey started. I got to the end of that road and there were 0 jobs. Yeah, no, it's 6 years. And I got to the end of a PhD in philosophy, was writing a dissertation, and there were 0 jobs. I mean, it's in the humanities. Everybody was cutting positions left, right, and center. So I started working in a small private school. I ran sort of the business side of it for another 7 years, and I was always the accidental techie. So this one day, a kid put a virus on the library cataloging computer, bricked it, and a parent approached me and said, "Hey, you want to learn some Ruby on Rails and Postgres, and we'll rebuild it." And so I was the Excel guy, Mr. Spreadsheet. So I kind of started out accidentally diving into Ruby on Rails and Postgres and realized I really loved it. Probably spent too much time studying philosophy and not enough time building. And a couple years after that happened at the school, I discovered Bubble, and then it was just game over. I knew I had to pivot because it made a life path that I had not even conceived was possible before. So I started out on Upwork like everyone does, taking $500 gigs and spending way too much time on them, and gradually crawled my way into some startup positions, moving going from junior to senior developer, as people do, and eventually moving into some sort of more managerial roles in startups, like project manager, product manager, matching manager at a big startup for a little while, and still developing the whole time. And so I've kind of seen this space that we're all in from a lot of different angles. And I kept seeing the same problem happening over and over again, that there was nothing in the middle between the Wild West of Upwork and an agency style experience for developing apps. And on Upwork, you've got lots and lots of cheap talent, but no vetting of projects, no vetting of freelancers, and a lot of people have a really terrible experience. On the other side, you've got agencies who deliver quality work, but are often too expensive for most clients. So, I was thinking, where is this middle ground where you've got some of the quality guardrails of an agency, but the value of a global talent pool? And so that's Bootstrapped. It's trying to be a hybrid between Upwork and an agency that's got those quality guardrails built into the platform, but has the value of that global, highly vetted, often certified. Yes, we've got tons of certified bubble devs, and we thank you all for being there. Talent pool. So that's Bootstrapped. And over the last year, I've made over 100,000 in revenue, and that feels like an achievement I really want to be proud of and pat myself on the back for. But also, I know a lot of people have this dream, and I want to talk about some sort of rules of thumb I've developed, not really just over the last year, but over the last 6 years of trying to, starting out at the very bottom, $500 on Upwork, right? It's not fun there. To really owning my own business that I can see a real path forward for, a good chunk of my life with. So these are just some rules of thumb, and take that in the broadest sense possible. Can everyone see my screen? I think I've got the screen sharing on. Okay, great. All right, so some rules of thumb that I've learned from 6 years of bubbling and a year of running this platform full time. Number one, don't quit your day job. It is hard, and there will be, if you're, a lot of people are tinkering around with businesses they'd want to, turn into their own business one day. Don't stop doing that, but also don't turn off your own personal revenue stream until you're ready. Perfectly acceptable to build, your side gig on nights and weekends. Because, honestly, Bubble permits this in ways that were just not possible before unless you, had an engineering degree or you really knew how to code. And be frugal with your stack. You can do whatever you want in your normal life if your salary permits it, but being frugal with your stack is really key because frugality is your runway. And, I would say try to focus on generating revenue, ideally profit, from day one. The minute you make that first dollar of real profit, you're ahead of 99% of people who try. And also think about your own life conditions. They matter quite a bit. You've got to have the time. Don't start your own business and have a child at the same time, right? Really think about where you are in your life and make sure you've got the variety of resources it takes to do it, because it's not for the faint of heart, and it takes an enormous amount of time. And we love talking, and here I am talking your ears off, right? Obviously love talking too. And I spent all that time in philosophy. What do? We talked about books, right? I had to teach myself to stop talking and ideating, brainstorming, making lists of features. No, start building. Just do it. If you think you've got an idea, the first best thing to do is just build a little mini app that you think solves something. Don't overthink. Start executing. And why is that? Well, because you don't really know what you're doing until you have real users and you get their feedback. You do not know what you're doing until you've got that. And then once you start to have it, you've got to create like a loop where you build feedback into your development cycle. It's really user-driven development. It's very, very important. And then, iterate and pivot based on that feedback. What you build at first is going to be bad. You got to get over that. You have to have the courage to ask a customer what's wrong, and then accept that you made a mistake, fix it, and change it for the better the next day. And don't minimize how hard this is, right? It's like good for your soul. That grind of constantly being critical about what you've built. So I don't know, there are lots of ways to, think about this iterative process, but, really try and build and be conscious of a loop that's good for you. So launch it, get real feedback, and then iterate. And, and eat your own dog food, right? Like Run As, I think, is the single best feature of the entire Bubble platform. Try and empathize with your user. That's what it lets you do. Like walk through the entire user journey for each one of your user types on a regular basis. Anytime you change something that's essential, go over and run as your most dedicated user and see if you've messed with their experience. It's just amazing that Bubble lets you do that in such a frictionless way. Forget the gurus. Zuckerberg is wrong. I have worked at startups where move fast and break things was the rule, and it sucked. It is a total recipe for chaos, and it does not work when you're bootstrapping. So let's reframe that. Move slow and fix things well. Do things well. Quality, not just speed. And let the task dictate the pace. And once again, that feeds right back to using customer feedback to solve pain points. And you have to we're a room full of doers and makers, right? So you have to restrain your building impulse, and it's hard because it's really fun to make stuff in Bubble and to have an idea and then execute it, and then it's there. May not be a good idea though, right? You got to flip that around from it being fun to what problem are you solving? And that'll really help you build a good feedback loop with your customers, because there are no universal rules for how to do this. You've got to figure out your customers and build these loops and software for them and their needs very specifically. And this is, don't just go to Y Combinator startup school and try to apply those things. Those gurus rules for unicorns don't work here, nor does VC. I got a slide for that too. The traditional startup advice doesn't work when you're really trying to do it yourself. And acknowledge that and start making up your own rules. Nothing wrong with that. I like to think I probably spend half of my time. I think of it as building for myself, and that's one of the ways I can keep Bootstrapped afloat without hiring people. So I'm probably spending 50% of my build time building out, working on that iterative feedback loop with client feedback, and then I try to use another half of my time doing it for myself. So when I see something that I'm manually doing over and over and over again, that's prime for automation, right? So build yourself a nice admin dashboard, and every time you see yourself spending too much manual time, automate it. And if it takes too much time to build in Bubble, well, then use Make, or, there are automations in Airtable. Ask ChatGPT. Whatever it is, the minute you see yourself doing something over and over in a manual way, automate it. It's the only way. You can't scale your time, so you've got to, but you can act like you've got more time than you have by creating automations that really perform the work for you. And once again, be empathetic to your user too. Make sure that the automations you build are serving your user at the end of the day. And I think I mentioned this earlier, frugality is your runway. You can't control your revenue. I mean, there are a variety of strategies for earning revenue in different types of apps. Rules of thumb for those, like how to grow a subscriber base for a SaaS, or how to build a marketplace. Which side of the marketplace do you start tackling first? Because you can only really solve one problem at a time, right? There's strategies for revenue growth, but you only have so much control over them. The one thing you have absolute control over is cost, and controlling them is how you're gonna survive when you're building something yourself. So look at this for just a minute. Like, how astonishing is it that my entire tech stack, and this is true today, is $200 a month? What is that? That's a bubble growth plan. And I'm not even coming close to hitting my woo limits, because be really ruthless about optimizing your app and having proper database structures and, avoiding runaway workflows and all that. But it's Bubble, ChatGPT, all API calls. Make $10 a month. Google Workspace, you need a professional email address. Calendly and Zoom, right? You can run the whole thing for $200 a month. Like, people complain about Bubble pricing. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is an absolutely astonishing tool for the money. And so they're the monetary costs, but then also, always remember the opportunity cost of your time, because time, you can't make any more of it. So the way to sort of fake having more time is by automating things, really, everything you can. But let the thing you're trying to do, the thing you're trying to scale, determine how you automate something. And I'm right now at this very difficult inflection point where I'm starting to make real money on a platform. How do I scale it without hiring someone who's like me, very expensive, right? So building out your own internal tools to scale instead of hiring is a big trick. And I won't, say that I have the final solution on that, but Bubble's part of the answer for sure. Also, don't automate everything. Yep. Yep. No, it's a good point, Taz. So my rule of thumb is automate a task you do manually 3 to 5 times a day. If you see yourself doing that, you automatically put that in the, okay, we've got to change that habit. And some of my favorite tools, obviously, build out a Bubble routine for it. If you haven't experimented with Google Apps Script, you are missing out on a huge opportunity to automate anything that touches your calendar or your email or data scraping or managing large sets of leads in Google Sheets, or check out Google Apps Script if you don't know about it. Text plays for template-based text for interactions you have all the time. All sorts of APIs that will help you with automations, and obviously our favorite, day-to-day is ChatGPT. But you can scale revenue, you can control costs, but you can't make more time in the day. So you've gotta find big levers to make every effort you make sort of an effort multiplier. Scalable automations. And Bubble's not always the right answer for an automation. If there's a good tool that does something for $10 a month, use it. Real simple. If it would take you hours and days to build it in Bubble, I love, obviously I love it, but just get that $10 a month subscription and use the tool. And so this is, you really do have to learn how to fall out of love with things you've built. And I like to frame that as pivoting small, fast, and often. Don't just think you build something and then you get customers and you have a business. This is like, it's not a thing. It's a constant process. And, right, so everyone has this dream of passive income. You build the thing and it's on autopilot and you make money. Wrong. It doesn't. No, there's no business that doesn't involve active involvement. And especially because the world moves so fast. So you build something, you get some traction. If you're not in a constantly pivoting mindset, you're instantly going to be behind the curve. And find the right time scale for your pivots. I think every few weeks for major initiatives. Don't go too fast. Again, be thoughtful about the pivots you make. Big platform changes take a lot of time. So here's a good example. I thought, okay, Bootstrap is going to scale better and make more money if it's more of a hands-off marketplace model, right? Get people to interact with one another, and then at a certain point intervene and make sure a bunch of things are set up, and it didn't work. And it shows the asymmetry in the marketplace that I'm working in. So devs were, because they're the ones who need the work, were really, really diligent about sending messages to prospective clients. And the clients didn't respond, right? So I realized at a certain point, I had recreated like one of the worst parts of the Upwork experience. How crummy is that? I felt awful when I actually framed it that way. And I deleted it and introduced a new manual layer of matching that has, it was a really, really successful pivot. It takes more of my time, but it's working where, the previous attempt to over-automate failed. So that's like, it's a classic example of trying to find product market fit. And boy, I was so grossed out at myself when I realized I was replicating Upwork. I really am not a fan. You have got to be in a niche that you both know and you like. It can't just be popular. So and why? Well, you've got to feel the pain point of your customer. You really have to feel it. You have to feel it as a user. You can't just like objectively identify it. It just doesn't work as well psychologically. And you've got to be in a niche that you're at least modestly passionate about. Like it's easy to be love building. Okay, that'll get you a certain distance building just about anything, right? Because building in Bubble is so much fun. But you should really be passionate about the niche that you're in too. It's going to be much more durable over the long haul that way, because we're driven by desire over the long haul, and you've got to tap into that basic feature of our psychology in order to have something that's sustainable. Also, niching down. You've got to niche down, right? We're not building unicorns here. Right? So, I could say, okay, I want to build an Upwork competitor, right? Look at Contra and all the news that they've made recently. They've, got a list of Bubble devs, on their page. They've got a nice, tidy, UI, and their user experience is much better than Upwork. And they've got all sorts of good things going on. Big money there, but also how are they going to get market share away from Upwork? Really, really hard problem. Like the bigger the niche, the harder it is to solve, whatever problem competitor tools are solving. But then again, you don't want to be too small, because at the end of the day, this has to make you enough money so you can quit your day job. That's the dream, right? So picking either a medium niche or a small niche that is growing, or a small part of a medium-sized niche where you can imagine doing more vertical growth or more horizontal growth. Those are kind of the sweet spots for bootstrap businesses. Don't get in too big. You won't be able to compete. Don't be too small. You won't make any money. That said, there's zero shame in the $500 a month MRR, really cool little tool that you built in Bubble that just kind of sits there and helps out members of the Bubble community. There are a lot of those, and I don't want to disrespect them because there's some really, really cool ones out there. But if you're trying to quit your day job, you got to think like, where does it go from there once you get some traction? And always keep it simple. I can't tell you how many times a day I ask myself why I built something, or I'll catch myself trying to build a new feature and like, am I doing this because I love building or because I really need it? And most of the time, those internal personal reasons are bad reasons. And they also, so we often build things because we love them or we think they're cool, but then, oh, that wasn't so we sort of set them aside. There's like an unused reusable, or you add a plugin that you didn't really need because you're testing that and you forget about. Well, that plugin adds JavaScript every time your page loads, right? There are consequences to building in that way, where you're not like constantly focused on being lean. And complexity always creates friction. There's always going to be some sort of consequence of building that way that you don't anticipate until there's a problem, and then you have to drop everything and go fix it. So back it up, and just every time you're approaching new features or pivots, think about simplicity. Right? It's our nature to overbuild. And it is so hard to kill off something you've built. You put all this time and money into it, but don't fall for the sunk cost fallacy. You've got to learn to move on. And there, there are huge performance benefits to running lean too. That's more of a technical talk. This is more of a business talk, but this is where there's a synergy between thinking this way and building good Bubble apps, right? Where you're optimizing your database tables, you're paying attention to your workload units, the plugins, so on and so forth. Keep it simple. This is one of my favorite tricks. Look at your database data as a big, massive table. Like download it as a CSV or something, and then throw it in Google Sheets and analyze it, or use fancier tools. Because the best data about how your app is being used is not coming from Google Analytics or Segment or any of those other big tools. It's in empty fields. It's so easy. And you just throw it in a spreadsheet, you sort by fewest, count is less than 10. It's like, this reveals far better than any tool I've found. Like places in your app that people aren't using. And you know what? It's probably your fault. There's some sort of build failure going on there. And it's revealed in your data, and your data is right there. It's so easy. So go find those things and then work backwards, sort of surgically by deleting a data field and an input in tandem. Nobody's using that input. So why is it in your onboarding flow, right? You're creating friction where you don't need it. Delete it. And then delete the data field too. And, keep searching. There's a good talk earlier about refactoring an entire database. Sometimes you've got to do that too. It's like you did not set up your two major tables in the right way, and you need a much more systematic sort of top-down refactor. Use the approach that's appropriate. App search, totally underused tool for finding stuff that's not being used. And I think unused styles, like, oh, don't we just love to style things on the fly and not apply a style, are one of those hidden like performance gotchas that slow page load speed and make the user experience poor. And then, on occasion, run optimize application. Sort of cleans up all the rest of the detritus and the file manager files and whatnot that you haven't caught with your more surgical approach. So the customer is not always right. You've got to use that. You've got to use the customer is always right most of the time, and most of the time it's true. Like the customer is the one suffering the pain points, and so you've got to take their feedback seriously. But you also have to know when to draw a line and say, you know, that just doesn't work with some core values that I'm trying to hold to, or like that would require an entire revision of the platform, like have to refactor the database, or I've got all these APIs that would have to change, or what, you know, whatever it is. Know when to say, nope, I just can't do that. And then articulate a really clear reason why. Most customer feedback should be used for your iterative development cycles, but not all. And know the difference between the types. And so sort of the subtext of all of this is, you know, what's bootstrapping? Well, it's using whatever resources you've got to build something that helps you quit your day job. I don't know, that's a good summary. And you know, the underlying thing, or it's in the subtext or somewhere else, you really don't need VC to build apps that scale, apps that make you money. We're not necessarily talking about unicorns, but I don't know why we're talking so much about unicorns in the first place, because it's just gambling. And you know, all this guru advice that you find out there, Paul Graham and Gary Tan, and you know, everything you find in the Y Combinator startup library, it's just not good advice if you're trying to build your own business. It's just not. And you know, just a little peek at like a VC fund model helps show you this, why, you know, a VC is really a bad partner if you're talking about a business that you want to own and run and you know, feel proud of at the end of the day too. So imagine a VC fund of 20 investments. VCs only need one of these to be a unicorn, and the overall fund will profit. Well, flip that logic around a little bit. That means they're betting on 95% of those investments to fail. So you're probably one of those investments, which means they're betting on you to fail. And why on earth would you ever choose a partner like that? You know, once you flip around the logic of a VC fund, you know, it's moonshots and unicorns, and most businesses just are not like that. And imagine how many genuinely good businesses that could have thrived in the world and given their founders, you know, a whole life path, were killed because they took venture capital. You can't put a number to it, but it's likely very large. So keep control of your product and your equity, and you know, learn your own rules of thumb, and hopefully you can build a business that'll help you quit your day job and do something you love more. And I can tell you for certain, I love more what I'm doing now than I ever have in my entire life, and that's thanks to Bubble. That's thanks to Bubble's incredible community, and you know, thanks to just kind of diving in and doing it, as scary as. So that's the end of my my slide deck here. I thought, you know, we could put together a little Slack instance for anyone who wants to continue this conversation. I got it up and running. I just made it this morning. Yeah, throw some questions in the chat if you've got them, or please feel free to reach out to me online, anywhere, LinkedIn or Twitter or website. Task. Can you talk a bit more? Yeah, I can do that. Yep. Hold on one sec here. I tested this, so it should work. Process. So a task question. Could you talk a bit about the process of figuring out your business model? Yes, absolutely. So I go back to the way I've been framing it. Like, you've got Upwork on the one hand over here that takes money from both sides of the marketplace. Their object is to maximize shareholder value at this point, right? They're publicly held. So that's why they introduced the Connect system. That's why it takes Connects to apply to projects. That's why they've you know, started gambling on boosted projects, and you know, that's also why they frankly they make more money if the marketplace is flooded with jobs that never get matched, and freelancers who join, spend a bunch of money on Connects, and then ditch. right? It's a really ugly business model that doesn't produce. There's no guarantee of project success there, right? No quality guardrails on either side, right? Jobs should be vetted in some minimal way. Not. Freelancers, frankly, should be vetted. But when Upwork roll, it's very difficult to scale, though, right? That's my moat is the fact that I interview a lot of freelancers. They don't want to do that because it takes so much effort. So I look at Upwork's business model and think, wow, that's really terrible. I don't want to do that, right? First of all, freelancers should not be paying for the platform. That's just a hard no. Clients should be paying for the platform. So I thought that was a pretty clear principle from day one. And so what I do is I take a freelancer's hourly rate and add a very small markup. So that markup has to cover processing fees. So the platform pays the processing fees, and then it eventually has to pay me. So all of the cumulative effect is that's my ultimate profit is from a small markup on every hour that's logged. That seems like a much more fair system than one in which freelancers pay the way of the platform. And so I kind of made that principled decision early on, and I've been looking at it. I think it's still the right decision. But I don't think I didn't come up with the business model first and then apply it. I sort of saw things I didn't want to do in the world, which was be a full agency where I'm constantly being the intermediary between the client and the freelancer. I think that creates all sorts of friction and adds cost on its own. I haven't really changed it much. I saw like things I didn't want to do, and then what I came up with was something that seemed like it was scalable. It's not like everything's based on hourly rate. So that's very easy to operate at scale. Whereas like everybody gets a custom price is it's very hard, right? I scope every project, but it's the most time consuming thing I do. And I'm kind of looking for ways to scale that and not finding any really good ones. So no, I haven't changed the business model much throughout. I don't really see any reasons yet to do so. Any other questions? I see dots. Question incoming. Oh, that's because all right, I'll fix that. Reach out if you want to join the Slack. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's just Will Loves No Code, and we'll get that working. I'd rather answer some questions here, or maybe we can. Wow. Great. Thank you, Jordan. I think I have some weird characters in it. What is Upwork doing well? It's making money. I don't know. I'm not really an Upwork stan because I think they've made a lot of poor choices that result in low quality outputs. But they've managed to maintain market dominance. Honestly, like their successes are business successes, but I wouldn't really call them like project successes, right? I don't, having an enormous array of options, it kind of like looks good at the start, But then if you submit a job, right, it's good to be on, even if you are taking jobs on Upwork, it's really good to submit things as a client just to see. Um, it is impossible to go through 100 applications, right? There's a structural problem with their pricing model. As a client, you're going to go through 5, maybe 10, right? Because every single pitch is different, so you have to read it all. There's no like comparison matrix. All the badges are paid for, so they're not necessarily good measures of quality, right? It's a really, really big point of friction, where like no effort is really being made to guarantee a good match. And I really, that's why I kind of focus on that being, the problem I'm solving for, a good match, instead of just making a lot of money by selling connects. Sorry, Tass. I don't have a better. I don't think Upwork does a lot of things very well other than making money. I got to say. Earning money from an upfront. Have you seen Bubble Bootstrappers earning money from an upfront setup fee apart from the monthly recurring revenue? You mean like charging a retainer and then doing some work, or like $500 just to get your project going? Eugenio, can you clarify your question a little bit? I mean, the question on I've got this marketplace framework, and marketplaces are hard. You're violating the first law of development, which is pick one problem, and you're picking two. You're picking the client's problem, and you're picking the developer. $1,000, so proposing $1,000 to set up an account and then monthly recurring revenue. I mean, there's some people who are trying to there's some agencies that have, package deals, like an MVP is $10,000. And then if you've got an existing app, it's 500 to $1,000 a month for a specified number of hours, actions. Those are models. I think nobody has fully productized MVP development yet. There are just too many different price points and too many different variables. I honestly don't. I think that's kind of an insoluble problem unless some things start changing in the marketplace. A fair hourly rate for no-code development, if you're really good, I think there's room at all price points. Our rates on the platform start at like 25 to $35 an hour for certified Bubble developers who are very, very good. But if you're in the States and you require, I'm in Pacific Standard Time. If I require someone Pacific Standard Time, that narrows your options significantly. It's not so much a fair hourly rate as a sort of nexus of criteria that you have for the developer you want to choose, like from the client side. I mean, as a developer, you've got to think, okay, if I charge $100 an hour, I'm going to get very few clients, because a lot of clients can't afford that. And you're going to get clients who want like just a couple hours of work because their budget won't support a $25,000 build. I think the sweet spot on Bootstrapped is kind of in the $30 to $45 an hour range. You've got developers all over the globe charging that, all very talented. And that's also a price that for like a project that takes 160 to 240 hours, that's kind of like your basic minimum viable app that's within budget. Yeah, I think a lot of people can charge $100 an hour if they're really good, and that I think, why should it be any different than software developers? Really, I don't see any reason why the dynamic of no-code software development should be different than ordinary custom code developers. Oh, more than $1 million in annual revenue. Um, yeah, I don't know. That's you don't know until people disclose it. And I think we're still at this point where people who've got that kind of revenue don't want to disclose it. So I think there are actually a lot more than we know of, right? Like the standout successes, like the Better Legals, Chad's Better Legal. He's really pro no code and pro talking about why he switched from full stack development to Bubble. But Bubble doesn't have any of that data. They don't have access to our Stripe accounts, thankfully, right? Because hopefully you've taken advice from other sessions and you lock that stuff down. That's really hard data to get. Market for R&D was poor this year. That's hard to say. I think, I mean, it kind of depends on where your primary channel was. I mean, the switching up the Bubble RFP system certainly cut out most of the smaller agencies. So if you were relying on that, you were a smaller agency, yeah, you had to go find new projects. There's still a lot of activity on Upwork. There's a lot of activity in the forum. There's a lot of activity in LinkedIn. I don't think that the market shrank. I think it got hit with a shotgun and scattered everywhere instead. It's in a lot more places now. There isn't just one spot for it. Right. Any other questions? We're kind of coming up on time here, but just wanted to content creation. Yeah, so thanks, appreciate it. SEO, SEO obviously like one of Bubble's like long-standing weak points, and it's all about page load speed. You just won't rank unless you've got page load speed, and a native Bubble page doesn't solve it. Ab is solving that with his sort of like under the radar app that he's building to go along with Coalius. There are some people who are using Cloudflare workers to accelerate Bubble pages. I think Chad at Better Legal has pretty publicly talked about some strategies that he's used to improve SEO. But frankly, all my SEO stuff is built in Webflow by someone who knows how to do that really, really well at scale. And I want to pull everything back into Bubble, but until there's a way to like cache a page and deliver it in under a second, Bubble's not going to play the SEO game as well as it could be. And it's really a shame because the way the database is just integrated into everything. I mean, the way the whole platform is built really should be optimized for SEO, right? You've got all that structure to make all this incredible dynamic content. And now we've got AI tools that allow us to generate that content. If you're good at prompting, it should be really low hanging fruit with like, an extra paid subscription. It's like a caching subscription for your SEO pages. You just buy those pages or everything that hangs off a certain page. But no, it's SEO not currently Bubble's strength. Let's see, posting on. Yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn, yes. I probably should do more video. This isn't so bad after all, just time consuming. HTML code on the landing page. That doesn't really, it doesn't help much. It's mostly about, all the resources that Bubble loads no matter what if you're using a native Bubble page. It's JavaScript for your plug. It's like that's the stuff that that slows page load speed down. Lack of control over hero images and lazy loading. I mean, there are a lot of things that that go into that page load speed. But I know they're working on them, but currently Bubble is just not set up for SEO still. I sure hope it's going to be the native builder is going to be a game changer. I think every single one of my clients would build a properly native app if they could. I feel bad for BDK and build natively because they're great, pillars of the Bubble, long-standing pillars of the Bubble community that have been the go-to native wrappers for a while. But we'll see. They're doing demos at BubbleCon, so I'm getting a demo that first day. We'll see. Yeah, so Webflow for all SEO pages. And I'm on the growth plan. Oh, Xano's amazing. But there's always an operational cost to splitting up your data. I think of it this way: like most people are best served by starting out just in the native Bubble, building as much in Bubble as you can, and you sort of, when something is too expensive or not performant, or you need SEO, that's when you think about adding on another tool. But like Bubble is such a good nexus for just connecting all that stuff, whether it's by independent API calls or plugins or hosting a couple tables on a Xano database. I usually say, wait until you've got a problem, and then yes, there's some other amazing tools out there on the market. If you've got like one table of 1 million rows, then you're like, okay, sign up for Xano. All right. Well, we're getting close to the end here. I want to thank you all for coming. Reach out to me in that Slack channel or on LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever to touch base. And you want to have a chat. Like, I'm pretty liberal with my my Calendly, so happy to do that too. You bet. All right. I'm going to sign off. Thanks a lot. We'll see y'all somewhere on the interwebs or hopefully at BubbleCon. All right. Bye-bye.